Good day, good people. My name is Gentleman Viking, and welcome to episode 4 of my Mandalorian reviews. Now, this isn't a first impressions video. I actually watched this episode right after the third one during my last video. I took down some notes, but I didn't make the video as I was feeling really tired that night. My notes weren't exactly complete either. So I've rewatched the episode again, so let's call this a second impressions video of Mandalorian episode 4. So it starts off with this fishing village. They harvest essentially shrimp or krill from these ponds in the ground. And they're being attacked by what are essentially space orcs, but they've got faces of dogs. But for the most part, I'm just going to call them space orcs. We see the war chief orc, he's leading the raid. He's shouting and screaming, as orcs are wont to do. And during this scene, we see the mother, like the secondary character, run after her kid, who, for some reason, stays behind. There always seems to, in these instances of an attack on a little village, there always seems to be this one kid who stays behind, screaming, "Mummy, mummy, daddy, daddy." They never get up and run away on their own. Now, I'm studying counseling at the moment, and because of that I had to take a few psychology courses. So there's this thing called fight or flight, where there's a trigger inside your brain, it sees danger, and it has to pick between running away or standing up to the threat. Now for some people, sometimes those signals can get mixed up and you're rooted to the ground. So it's kind of like fight, flight, or stay. I couldn't think of a fucked. Fight, flight, fly, or fucked. You stay, you're fucked. We'll go for that. Anyway, but there always seems to be this one kid who always gets put to the fucked part of the brain, where they just don't fight, they don't flight, and the parent always has to run back and get him. But the kid always is like I'm not bagging the kid's acting, but I mean, I can get that you're scared, but you're not absolutely rooted to the ground terrified, you know? So the mum grabs the kid, jumps into one of these krill ponds, put a basket over their head, and they hide from the space orcs. Then we cut to a shot of Mandalorian finding his ship, flying his ship, which we later find out is called the Razor Crest. It's a pretty cool name. Baby Yoda is sitting on his console, fiddling around with buttons, and he flicks one, and Mandalorian is like, "Stop touching buttons," turns it off. And then Baby Yoda, it looks like a cat with like you see a video of a cat looking at the owner as it tips a glass across off the table. That's essentially what Baby Yoda does. Like, looks at him, he's like, boop. This seriously is the series that launched 1,000 memes. It's so good. And just a cute, funny little moment. Mando flicks the switch off again and puts Baby Yoda on his lap to get him from moving. They come across a planet because they're trying to lay low from the Bounty Hunters Guild and probably the Imperial soldiers that he killed or stole Baby Yoda from on the Bounty Hunter planet. They find this planet. I can't remember the name of it. I don't write down a lot of names. I'm terrible with names anyway. It's like a backwater planet. No heavy spaceport, no heavy industrial area, heavy population centers, just a backwater planet. So they land, and then Mandalore tries to argue logic with a Baby Yoda, saying, "Right, now you stay here. Stay out of trouble, don't touch anything, you gotta stay here." You're seriously arguing logic with a baby. It's not going to work. So he opens up his the side of his spaceship, the ramp, and Baby Yoda's standing next to him. He's like, "Okay, come on then." He starts walking down the ramp, and Baby Yoda's like walking on little stubbly legs. He can barely follow him. I gotta tell you though, I don't know if it's special effects or an animatronic or if it's a puppet that they blue screened in, but they did a really good job on those Baby Yoda shots. I seriously can't tell if it's green screen half the time or if it's a puppet or what. Good on you. Big shout out to the special effects department for Mandalorian. Anyway, So they wander into this, I'll call it an inn, or a cafeteria, whatever you want to call it. Baby Yoda comes across this like giant cat creature with sharp teeth that growls at him. He's like, and then wanders off, following Mandalore again. Mandalore sits down, orders a bone broth for the kid, nothing for him. But he sees this insidious-looking character in the corner, a woman. And he says to the barkeep, "Oh, how long's she been here?" "Oh, a couple of weeks." "What's her business?" "Oh, I don't know. I don't really ask those sorts of things." And then Mando like flips her a big credit shit or something. He's like, "Oh, thank you." He tries to bribe her and it doesn't work. Probably because she's never had that happen before. It's not a cliche on that planet. I do like it when when fiction tries to break cliches, break the mold, even in small ways. So anyway, the woman played by Gina Carano. Now her name, the character name I did write down, Kedun. She disappears from the cafeteria. So Mandalore walks out, throws another coin at the innkeeper. "Look after the kid." He's like, "Oh yeah, sure." He walks out and he's got like this predator vision in his helmet, and I thought that was pretty cool, because normally you only see things like that when you've got a binoculars on. But it also just lends to the fact that, you know, Mandalore, it's not just armor, it's actual like power armor, built-in technology into his suit, which makes sense, especially as he's a bounty hunter and he's got to stay alive. So yeah, Kedun ambushes him. They have a little powwow. They end up pointing guns at each other. They're in a stalemate, and then you just hear slurping. And pan over to Baby Yoda, who's just like sitting there drinking his bone broth. It's so adorable. And seriously, just launched 1,000 memes. No wonder Baby Yoda was such a breakout for this series. He's just so adorable. All this mad shit happening, and he's just like doing baby things. Anyway, so they have a brief explanation of who Cara Dune is. She's a former shock trooper for the rebellion. After Endor, the Imperial governors and warlords started consolidating their power, and she was charged with taking them down. They dropped down her squad, and then she's got to eliminate them. But then it got to the point where after they'd eliminated the governors, what can you do? Then suddenly the people of those planets are starting to rely on the rebellion, quote, or / New Republic, or maybe even these shock troopers were put in charge for a little while. Who knows? So I don't think they really explained it in the episode, at least not from what I could gather. Anyway, so she essentially says, "Oh yeah, you know, this planet isn't big enough for the two of us. I'm in hiding, you're in hiding, I was here first, you gotta move on." Now, there seems to be a lot of New Zealand actors hired for this series, or at least they look New Zealander. Mori, however you pronounce it, I believe. So, like, Mandalore, in his flashbacks, you see, I think it's him as a little kid and his parents locking him in a cellar. They're played by New Zealand actors, and then half the members of this krill fishing or krill farming village, they're played by New Zealand actors as well, which is pretty cool. You know, it's amazing how much a different accent or a different skin tone from regular old English speaking white guy can really break things up. So yeah, they try to hire him for the job, for a job to get rid of these space orcs, these raiders. And he's like, "Oh, you live out in the middle of nowhere, you got lodging. Hang on." Takes the credits and goes and hires Cara Dune to help him out to take care of these raiders too, because he figures, oh, well, you know, maybe the planet isn't big enough for the two of us, you know, I'll stay at the farm or whatever. Now, I made a note of how he eats, because the mother from the beginning of the episode, when Mandalore gets to the village, he starts setting up. The mother sets down some food for him. The daughter takes Baby Yoda out to play, and I was wondering, you know, how does he eat if he's not allowed to take off the helmet? and he says, "Oh, I took the helmet off yesterday," and he reveals that no one's seen his face since he was a little kid, because he's not allowed to, because that is the way. And I thought, okay, then that's pretty interesting. You know, it's reminds me of the Quarians again from Mass Effect. It's like a self-imposed exile for the Mandalorian people, and we still don't know why. If that is the way it's always been, but even in the game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the only Mandalorian you ever saw without his gear on was Cordo? I can't remember the character's name. Big guy, grey hair, tending towards the evil side. And then they bought the same voice actor for another character in the second game called Mandalore, who is meant to be the leader of the Mandalorian people. He never takes off his armor or his helmet. So, anyway, getting a little sidetracked. So it makes me wonder if Mandalorians in general aren't allowed to take off their gear unless it's under extreme circumstances, and then they just adopted that for all of the time. No one is allowed to show their face because of this great purge that happened on their people by what I'm presuming is the Imperials. Like, we've seen a separatist droid, battle droid, the ones with the guns on the arms, the big grey guys, shooting a bunch of people on Mando's home planet. Well, we think it's Mando. So yeah, who knows? Anyway, got a little sidetracked there. But yeah, so it weirded me out a little bit, the fact that he's not allowed to take off his helmet in front of people, he's not allowed to show people, yet he's looking out the window at the bunch of kids playing with Baby Yoda, and then he takes off his helmet, sets it down, and starts eating. And I'm like, hang on, you're right in view of all of these kids. What if one of them looks up and says, "Oh, hey, look, that's what he looks like"? Do you have to suddenly you're not allowed to put the helmet back on? Because Khedun says, "Oh, what happens if you take off the helmet?" "Oh, I'm not allowed to put it back on again," which I'm assuming means his exile of the self is over, but he's exiled from his entire clan. So yeah, that weirded me out. So the Mandalore and Khedun do a bit of tracking, and they find out that the raiders are also using an ATST to conduct some of their raids, which they weren't told about. And as soon as they find that out, they're pretty much just like, "Nope, fuck it. You know, you guys didn't tell us about this. This is way more than we can handle by the two of us. We're out of here." And then the village is like, no, you can't leave. We're not going to leave. We hired you. You got to do something. So they start training the villagers in basic combat. Now, I honestly don't really think it's all that big a deal, but I did see some of the more zealous anti-Star Wars fans saying, "Oh, you know, she's it's all that female empowerment BS. This chick, the mother, knows how to shoot a gun, and we're not given an explanation." From a narrative, I can say I agree with them, but purely from a narrative standpoint. Like, this woman has lived on a backwater her whole life. She's a farmer. She's really had no reason to shoot a gun, and now suddenly she's shooting a pan with a blaster rifle at 20 paces non-stop. Even just a throwaway line, so like something along the lines of, "Oh, I went off planet for a hunting trip with my dad," or something like that. Or "My husband was a soldier and he taught me how to shoot." Something throwaway like that. I think that could have cleared that up quite nicely. So anyway, the plan to defend the village, they dig this big hole in one of the krill ponds. So they dig it deeper so that when the ATST walks over it, it will fall into the pond. They set up barricades around the village as well, so it only has one way to go, which I think is pretty smart. Although there is this strip big enough for the raiders to run through, but not big enough for the ATST. That I don't know, I mean, I guess the ATST is like 5 meters wide, so you'd need to have a path at least 6 or 7 meters wide for it to walk down properly. And I think the path was only like 3 or 4 meters wide at most. So I guess that kind of makes sense. Anyway, so Mandalore and Khedun, they run to the Raiders' camp. They blow a part of it up to try and coax the ATST out of hiding and into to attacking the village. But at the same time, I was thinking to myself, why do that when you can find the ATST? From the looks of it, it wasn't too heavily guarded. It was literally just sitting in behind a couple of trees, and then just rises up from behind the trees. So at most, you might have had, I think those ATSTs have a crew of 3, and let's say another 3 guards. So let's say 6 guards, or 6 people around the ATST. You have about 10 sitting around this campfire. They have a grenade, or an explosive of some description. At the very least, why couldn't they sneak up to the ATST, throw the explosive to take out the 6, shoot anyone who's left over, and then quickly shoot another bomb, throw another bomb into the eye of the ATST, because it seems to be low enough that it's hiding behind some trees. It's low enough to at least lob something in it, or even attach the bomb to it, because that was a pretty big boom that this little bomb made. I guess what I'm saying is, there is another way they could have done it without exposing the whole village. And even if they had failed that, if they'd had the pond plan going, it's still another plan to fall back on. I would have tried to take out the ATST at the camp first, but that's just me. Oh yeah, and they do this training before that attack happens. They do this training montage with wooden spears and these blasters. Mandalore opens up a crate that he took from his ship, and there's like 10 blaster pistols. And I'm like, shit. Well, it's lucky you bought that stuff, man. Good thing it wasn't just you who was gonna take out these raiders. Thought that was a bit lucky. So anyway, the ATST shows up at the village. It starts shining a spotlight, and Mandalore's like, "Oh, everybody get down!" But no one gets down. They're all like hiding behind the barricade, but you can still see that they're not exactly ducked behind the barricade to the point where they can't be seen. Anyway, so the ATST starts attacking. The Space Orcs start attacking as well. The War Chief comes out of nowhere and starts attacking the villages as well. He eventually gets taken out by the 2 guys who track down Mando at his ship in the first place. They stab him with a couple of spears. At the same time as the attack is happening, the ATST hasn't walked into the pond. It hasn't fallen for the trap. So Khedun takes Mandalore's, now it's called a pulse rifle. I was just calling it a disruptor rifle. The big rifle that he carries on his back. She takes that and starts shooting at the ATST from inside a pond, so it can't see her properly. It gets a better angle by leaning in a bit closer, to the point where it just steps in the pond and falls over. Mandalore runs up, throws a grenade in the cockpit's eyes, and then bada bing, bada bang, it's gone. And then they rush off the rest of the raiders. So it looks as if that Mando and Khedun stayed at this farm for a couple of weeks, not only to lay low, but they fixed up the place. Mando's kind of having a bit of a holiday. He hasn't exactly taken off his armor, kind of relaxed, but he's settling down a little bit. And he's in a bit of a bind, because he knows that Baby Yoda is happy there with these farmers. But he also knows that this place isn't for him. He still has... It looks like he has some sort of mission to complete with his people, the rest of the Mandalorians. He has to find out where they've gone, since they have to relocate their hideout. Because that is the way. Yes, I'm going to try throwing in all that. It's a very gravitas saying, this is the way. Anyway, then this bounty hunter comes out of nowhere and starts targeting Baby Yoda. It's about to shoot Baby Yoda, and you're on your edge of your seat thinking, oh shit, is he going to shoot Baby Yoda? And then Mando has to find medical attention for it, but No, Khedun shoots the bounty hunter in the back somehow. Quick side note. That bounty hunter, the design reminded me a little bit of the game GAIM from Babylon 5, an insectoid species. They got like big bug eyes, they're always in an exosuit, and they have like this proboscis thing. It's meant to be like a universal translator or something, I don't know. Yeah, and it also made me realize when Mando was like saying his goodbyes to the village, and Baby Yoda's having to say his goodbye to the kids he became friends with. There's a lot of emotion conveyed within these two characters, because they bounce off of the other characters they're with. But I mean, Mandalorian, it's kind of like Judge Dredd from the movie Dredd, played by Carl Urban. You can't see his face, so he has to do a lot of his acting in here, and also with his tone of voice. And yeah, for a moment it seemed like Mando was actually pretty broken up about wanting to leave. Like, he as if he was thinking to himself, yeah, I could actually be happy here and not have a care in the world for the rest of my life. But he also knows that he's still got to leave anyway to keep Baby Yoda safe. Excuse me. He's got to leave to keep Baby Yoda safe. He's got to fulfill the requirements of his clan. So I thought that's quite a good bit of acting there on behalf of Mandalorian's actor. And that's essentially the episode. I liked it. Even as a second time watching it, I thought it was done pretty well. Conveyed a lot of emotion. Used a lot of cliches, but I mean, everything's been done nowadays. I did like that the music for when the AT-ST was rising out from behind the trees. It reminded me a lot of the music from the old Nintendo 64 game Shadows of the Empire, when you first encounter an AT-ST, which I'm pretty sure was also pulled verbatim from the movies. And speaking of the music, so most of the music was done, or most if not all of the music was done by Ludwig Göransson. I'm hoping I pronounced that right. It's got an umlaut on the O, so it's like O and then 2 dots above it. He's done an amazing job with the music in this series. It sounds very much like John Williams wrote it, especially the main theme for Mandalorian. It sounds like a mixture between Star Wars, an Old West movie, like a Clint Eastwood movie, and almost like an Indiana Jones movie. Like the adventure sort of sounding music. He's done a really good job. If I could, I would buy this on CD. If I saw it, I would buy it on CD. It's some good music, man. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Mandalorian. The episode 4. The episode was pretty good. Bit cliche, but that's okay. I think the show's still sort of finding its feet at this point. So you gotta go back on a few old cliches to sort of build off of those and build the show. But yeah, if you have any comments, let me know what you think in the comments below. Please like and share the video with your friends. It does help to grow this very small channel. I think I'm on about 10 or so, or not even 10 subscribers yet at time of recording. But hey, who knows, maybe I'll get to 20 by the end of the year. Yeah, feel free we can have a chat down below, like and share the video. Yeah, have a good day. Ta-ra!